as well as personal.
Была идеологическая перепалка, но она
Ideological squabbles could get quite comical.
комические формы. Значит, с одной стороны, образно говоря, выходили.
The Soviet side would say, "We are the Marxists."
Говорили, мы марксисты.
And then the Chinese would say, "No, we are the Marxists."
С советской стороны.
The Soviets would say, "We are red." And the Chinese would say, "We are even redder." It could appear funny, but the damage was really serious.
The party started issuing documents, editorials, attacking Soviet revisionism. So from then on, along with other slogans, we had to shout, "Down with Soviet revisionism." Later on, was down with Khrushchev.
In 1958, Mao had thought up a new policy, the Great Leap Forward, the grandiose plan to transform China into a rich world power. Land was taken over by the state. The family unit was to disappear. People were organized into huge communes. A utopian world of plenty would come from sheer force of will. Mao's method was to be a more extreme version of Stalin's brutal collectivization of the 1930s.
The Great Leap Forward was a kind of recklessness. Mao wanted to change the face of China in the shortest time possible. The slogan was, "Struggle hard for 3 years. Change the face of China. Catch up with Britain. Catch up with America." It was completely unrealistic.
Because steel remained a key symbol of national vitality, the entire country reverted to pre-industrial backyard furnaces. People worked day and night to produce massive amounts of useless metal.
The largest city in China is Shanghai. Once I arrived there at the height of the Great Leap Forward. I went up to the roof of a tall house, and from there I could see all of Shanghai was in flames. In every courtyard they were smelting steel.
Crops were left to rot. Scientific knowledge and all common sense were ignored. No one dared to tell the truth for fear of arrest or worse.
The lies of the Great Leap Forward were absolutely unbelievable. Anybody who did not speak in falsehoods was demoted or expelled from their jobs. From the time of the Great Leap Forward, all Chinese people learned to tell lies.
The peasants' food was taken from them by force to make up bogus quotas. It was one of the worst man-made disasters in history.
We had to eat the husks of coarse grain, not even the grain itself. We ate leaves of trees. We all went down with hepatitis. Many peasants died of starvation. No one really knew how many.
Because of Mao's policy, over 30 million people starved to death. Hiding the catastrophe, Mao still posed as the leader of world communism. Blocked by Washington from the United Nations, China became the champion of anti-American causes. Third world leaders and Western intellectuals flocked to Beijing. In Moscow, Khrushchev was pursuing peaceful coexistence with the West.
The Kremlin is the setting of an historic event, the signing of an atom test ban. The big three representatives, Dean Rusk, Andrei Gromyko, and Lord Hume, signed for the U.S., Russia, and Britain. Most other nations of the world, with the notable exception of France, Communist China, and Cuba, are to sign later. Communist China has denounced the Soviets for making the treaty, widening further the breach between the two communist powers.
Mao reacted to the nuclear test ban treaty with defiance.
The Chinese Communist nuclear detonation is a reflection of policies which do not serve the cause of peace. But there is no reason to fear that it will lead to immediate dangers of war. The nations of the free world will recognize its limited significance and will persevere in their determination to preserve their independence.
In 1965, U.S. Marines were sent to South Vietnam. President Johnson was determined to prevent communist North Vietnam and its allies in the South gaining power. In China, the masses were mobilized to support neighboring North Vietnam.
The rulers in Hanoi are urged on by Peking. This is a regime which has destroyed freedom in Tibet, which has attacked India, and has been condemned by the United Nations for aggression in Korea. It is a nation which is helping the forces of violence in almost every continent. The contest in Vietnam is part of a wider pattern of aggressive purposes.
A war between China and the United States was once again a possibility. Haunted by the failure of the Great Leap Forward, Mao was fighting to maintain his domination of China. In 1966, he launched the Great Cultural Revolution.
He failed to bring about an economic miracle, so in 1966 he wanted a political miracle. He not only wanted to get rid of his enemies, he wanted to do something that Stalin had been unable to do: destroy government bureaucracy.
The Mao personality cult did not come to full blossoming until the Cultural Revolution, when he became the so-called four greats: the great leader, great helmsman, great supreme commander, great teacher. He has replaced Stalin, and Beijing has become the center of world revolution.
Millions of young people were recruited to be Mao's Red Guards. Their idealism was exploited to create mayhem and to destroy every vestige of the past.
Chairman Mao says, Marxism consists of thousands of truths, but they all boil down to one phrase: it's right to rebel. The proletarian revolutionary rebels hold high the great red banner of Mao Zedong's thought. Through big character posters and great debates, they argue things out, expose, criticize, and repudiate thoroughly, and launch fierce attacks on all kinds of representatives of the bourgeoisie.
The first action was to change the names of roads. The name of the road outside the Soviet embassy was changed to Anti-Revisionism Road. There were demonstrations outside the Soviet embassy. Most of the demonstrators were Red Guards.
In the morning, they would hang up dummies of Brezhnev, Kosygin, and Podgorny. When it began to get dark, they took them down and started a huge bonfire at the entrance of the embassy and burnt the dummies. The Red Guards and the young people gathered around the fire and danced and yelled anti-Soviet slogans. From midnight to 6 a.m., it was time for Chinese torture. For 15 minutes, they would stop and we would start falling asleep, exhausted by the noise. Then, they would begin yelling again for 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, they would start and stop, all night. Then, at 6 a.m., the noise would begin and continue all day.
In 1969, tension along the vast Soviet-Chinese border increased.
Границы Союза Советских Социалистических Республик священны и неприкосновенны.
There were frequent clashes. The Ussuri River in Soviet East Asia was the scene of many of them.
China's brave fishermen are full of heroism and bright wisdom. They're not afraid of heaven or earth. The filth of the Soviet revisionists causes them no fear.
There were a lot of provocations from the Chinese. They crossed the border in huge numbers. What could we do? It wouldn't be nice to shoot them. But how could we get rid of them? It was a difficult question to solve, and so things got worse. The Chinese were mostly to blame.
Images of aggressive Chinese at the border fueled Soviet fears of an invasion.